Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.
Two referenda, but really one question at issue: a sales tax hike in Rock Island County, looking at another way to fund essential services in the cities. Rock Island County voters are being asked if they want to see people spend a little more on the things they buy to help fund its law enforcement and to build better schools. Those are two pretty worthwhile efforts, schools and countywide policing, but are the two tax questions on the ballot really the best way to go about this budget bolstering effort? In a moment, we'll talk about the 1-cent countywide school improvement tax referendum, but first, the half-cent county tax to fund public safety. It's what the majority of county board members considered the best of four proposals to help bring the county's funding in line without mass layoffs and cuts in services, but they wanted the question to go to voters. Joining us is the Sheriff of Rock Island County, Gerry Bustos, who supports the referendum, and County Board Member Don Johnston, who questions the need for the sales tax hike in the county. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Jim.
Sheriff, isn't this a tough sell?
This is absolutely tough sell. Certainly referendums don't fare very well in Rock Island County, but again, this is different. This isn't politics. This is public safety, and that's why I think it's a worthwhile referendum for people to take a good hard look at.
Critics would say that the reason why it's for public safety is it's an easier pill for the public to swallow, when in fact it's just helping the budget across the board. By taking it and making it just public safety, then you can campaign for it much easier.
Well, I don't think that's actually true. I can tell you for the past number of years, our budget has gotten smaller and smaller, and there are millions of dollars in capital improvement projects that must happen. So this tax is really going to go a long way to make those improvements that, frankly, Rock Island County has promised the Sheriff's Office for years that we'll take care of it next year. We'll catch up with you next year, but those years literally have never happened.
And I do want to talk more about that, of course. Don, let me start with you, though. I mean, you've been a critic of this type of a sales tax increase. Why is that?
Well, I've always thought that if you had to choose on increasing the revenue, possibly a sales tax was the best way to do it. I felt that this one wasn't going to pass, and consequently, I also thought that we weren't looking forward to what we were going to do if it didn't pass. And back when we passed the increase in taxes the last time, which was supposed to be 16.8, but assessed valuation raised it in a lot of households, we put 95% of that money in two funds. And what we have is $2,300,000 in those two funds. We left $1.7 million at Hope Creek when we took the responsibility for IMRF and Social Security out of there. And this year we not only leave that $1.7 million there, but we also left the rate the same, where it's actually went up another $125,000. And that money would be very valuable to transfer without any tax increase. Just change the rates, let the rates float, and put it into the liability fund, where if the sheriff and other departments, the recorder's office, the circuit clerk's office, have serious problems, then the court order would come and we'd have that as a head start. And I would like to say that Sheriff Bustos has been the person that's went around and explained this in a very professional way, and it's probably given the referendum a chance to pass, where I didn't think it had passed at all at the beginning of this thing.
Sales tax increase obviously is not a real popular thing, but for county governments and local governments, school districts and the like, it tends to be a lesser evil than property taxes, where people are really getting hammered in the state of Illinois. Sales taxes are more regressive, though. It affects lower income people, and that's what this referendum would do. I mean, is that a major concern of yours?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a major concern of most people. Around jobs are hard to find right now, and people with insurance payments that are going up and that type of thing. I think they look at it as a problem. Let alone businesses are the ones that are really upset to some extent, or to probably a great extent, where if you go out to a restaurant, it's I don't know that everybody thinks about this, but a lot of people would go across the river where they would have a little cheaper bill at the end of the night, and so it affects a lot of people a lot of different ways. On the other hand, Sheriff Bustos is right. The county has a lot of capital improvements that need to be made, but I don't think we can make them all in a 5-year plan as fast as what is proposed right now. And what worries me as much as anything is all we're talking about right now, I happen to be in the budget committee, is a budget that incorporates the success of that half-cent sales tax. And so I don't want to be sitting around the day if it doesn't pass and saying, now what do we do? I think there's some things we could do, as I mentioned earlier, and some other things that we should be looking at right now.
But since this proposal was made, and this would be early summer, midsummer, and the county was looking at it, it really did seem to be approve this, all the other options are bad. And so we've gotten to a point where if this isn't approved, Rock Island County is going to have to say, oh my gosh, what's next?
Well, that's what they're saying. But as I explained, there's $3, $4, $5 million in these other funds out there that could be put in as a safety net, where some of this stuff could be accessed with a court order if needed for that purpose. And that's what we should be doing. And then of course, frankly, the liability fund has no cap like the IMRF and like Social Security. So if it would be needed, then the tax would have to be raised in that fund.
Rock Island County Sheriff, as you well know, has been hit by a number of monetary issues. Hope Creek is being mentioned, county courthouse, even the administration building. Why is the Sheriff's Department any different, or is it in the same boat?
Well, I guess to back up just a little bit to talk about what Don just brought up, you're talking about extra money that may be in these other funds. Now, those come from a tax levy specifically for those parts of county government. It's not something that they can move from one part of county government to another. So you literally can't move that money from, say, Hope Creek into the sheriff's office to fix the shortfall. It just can't happen.
So the key is different buckets, exactly.
It absolutely is different buckets.
So explain to me why this is really needed for public safety. Because you said that you've been facing cuts. Give us some examples.
Well, certainly the amount of cuts that Rock Island County has talked about. You know, we're talking about taking back the Sheriff's Department back to, perhaps the 70s with staffing. We're talking about not making the capital improvement projects that are long overdue.
Like what?
First and foremost on my list that we have to do is communications. Rock Island County is the last one in the Quad City area that is still on UHF and VHF. It is 1960s, 1970s technology. Virtually everyone on both sides of the river have gone to 800 megahertz. It is an absolute must. There is virtually no other dispatch center in the Quad Cities that can take our calls if in fact something bad were to happen to our dispatch center. So it is critical that we come up to speed with everybody else. Secondarily, squad cars. Again, I have over 60 squad cars within the sheriff's office, and the average mileage is 100,000 miles. Those are some of the things that they've said, well, we'll take care of those next year, but next year never came. We can certainly talk about the courthouse. The condition of the courthouse, another thing that Rock Island County certainly passed on making upgrades to. And I can tell you, and I made a presentation to the county board, the building's falling apart. There's no doubt about that. And it's over 100-year-old building. And something has to be done with that.
Biggest concern, I would assume, would be staffing. I mean, if this were to pass, how would this help staffing for the Sheriff's Department?
Well, again, it will prevent these mass layoffs that Rock Island County is talking about. And again, I can tell you, Jim, I have nobody to lay off. We've already cut back our budget. I can tell you over the last 2 years, we have turned back in almost $1 million, not that we didn't need the money and we should have spent it, but I did it to help Rock Island County stay afloat. We're talking about cutting back correctional officers to the point that the Justice Center, I would have to consider closing the jail cells in that building because I wouldn't have enough staff to staff it. And all those inmates that are in there are either going to have to go into the main jail, or I'm going to have to pay another county to house them because I won't have the staff to do it.
And as we've seen with other counties, that can be a pretty expensive proposition, that alone.
And secondarily, we can talk about the deputy sheriffs. We're talking about people that dial 911 and virtually won't get anybody to show up. That's something that I can't allow.
Don, you got to ask the question because people are going to ask this all over. I mean, how did we get to this point? I mean, why is it such a dire situation that requires this type of a vote?
Well, first off, you blame the county board. It wasn't any of the elected officials in the county. But let me make one correction. You can move the money that I was talking about. And what you would do, take the $1.7 million that's in Hope Creek. You would raise you only could do it at levy time. You would lower the levy for Hope Creek. You would raise the liability fund that amount so it would go in there. Same way with IMRF, same way with Social Security. From that point on, the sheriff's right. You can't just put it in his department. But if his department is lacking finances to run his office, a court order can take care of that and take it out of the litigation fund. That's the way to take it. But to get back to your question, it's the county board to blame over the years, and I can't take all the blame. I was on a board in 1980, but I left for 30 years and then came back, so I can't take all the blame, but I'll take part of it. We just kind of let the economic development and maintenance on the buildings go, and it should have never been done. And now the responsibility is in other people, several office holders' hands, and mainly the sheriff. And it's too bad that it's deteriorated like this.
Well, it seems like, and you know, you can get specific and all that. It's going to gloss over a lot of people's minds,
sure.
but there's still juggling of the budget that you see that is possible to make up for some of these differences in the sheriff's department and in public safety.
Yeah, I think that's a start, and this is only a security if this thing doesn't pass, in my view. If it passed, everything would be fine. But if it doesn't, then this is a step to be prepared for to find the funding for emergency services and that type of thing that you might need.
In a moment, we're going to also talk about the countywide sales tax increase for schools.
Right.
Could these two questions have come at a worse time? I mean, putting them both on the same ballot, could it get any worse for voters? I mean, it's so easy just to say no to both.
No, I tried to talk these other two gentlemen and taking theirs off, but they wouldn't do it. So yeah, but no, it's a bad time for this. There's no question about it. It's a bad time to ask for any type of tax at this point. And that was the point that I had at the very beginning, is I thought we ought to prepare, because I didn't think there was a chance of passing. But you know, you just never know about these things. And if it doesn't pass, then we have to start acting immediately to solve the problem.
And Sheriff, the same question really goes to you. I mean, this is very tough sell, equally if not doubly so, because there's a second question on the ballot.
Absolutely. I certainly understand that people don't feel very, very good about politics and politicians specifically. They're always asking for a lot of things. But again, I come back to this is different. This is public safety, and this is really about keeping our homes and our families safe, regardless of who you are, whether you live here or whether you're just passing through. You know, I also can tell you that how this is different from the things that Rock Island County has done before is this is a sales tax. This is spread across everybody that buys those things that qualify, and it's only those things that qualify. And by doing that, it's going to drive their property taxes down by 12% of the county portion in 2017. So again, it takes the burden off of the homeowner and the property tax payer, and it spreads it out over everybody that buys things within Rock Island County.
Which really is the biggest selling point that you have there.
Absolutely.
It's just lower property taxes.
Property taxes.
Sheriff Bustos, thank you so much for joining us. Don Johnston,
Thank you.
County Board member, thank you so much. And in a moment, the other big tax question for Rock Island County voters. Should the sales tax also be increased to improve school buildings throughout the county? But first, getting the most out of October. Laura Adams has some great suggestions if you plan to grab a light jacket and go out and about.
This is Out and About for October 24th through 30th. Hi, I'm Laura Adams. Join the Lago Marcinos Coco Beano 5K race in the village of East Davenport the 29th at 9. Or check out Mercado on 5th, a nighttime market at the Community Health Center in Moline. And there's plenty of spooky fun, including Riverside United Methodist Church's Trunk or Treat, free for children of all ages. Fright Night in the District of Rock Island with music, trick-or-treating, and costume contest. And the Silvis Library offers a bit of the paranormal with Visiting the Beyond with Kurt Strutz. There's family pumpkin carving night at the Smith Studio in Geneseo, and a trivia night costume party at the Knights of Columbus in Davenport. Bettendorf hosts a nighttime Halloween parade on the 29th at 7, while Davenport holds a new daytime Halloween parade at 1, while downtown LeClaire hosts a Witches Walk and costume parade. The Rolling Stone show Satisfaction is coming to Circa 21, while next door at the Speakeasy, catch the cult favorite, The Rocky Horror Show. Theater of the Oppressed, an interactive theater performance, takes place at Scott Community College, and at the Establishment Theater, the cast of Shakespeare presents Spooky. an improvised horror movie. Davenport Junior Theater presents the musical Pagora the Witch, and it's the last weekend to catch the critically acclaimed production of Buried Child at Quad City Theater Workshop. For more information, visit wqpt.org.
Thank you, Laura. A little earlier, we talked about the merits of a countywide public safety sales tax on the November ballot, but that's only half the question. School districts in Rock Island County are also looking for a 1-penny addition to the sales tax to help pay for school construction. It's a question that voters have faced before and defeated. What's different this time? Joining us is United Township High School Superintendent Jay Morrow, who supports the sales tax referendum, and Kevin Nolan, a member of the Rock Island Milan School District, who opposes it. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me start with that question, Jay. I mean, what is different this time around?
The need hasn't changed, Jim. It's basically a way for school districts countywide to get away from a property tax base to build new buildings, or more importantly, fix existing structures versus a sales tax. The sales tax, we feel, is more equitable in terms of spreading out throughout the entire population. A large number of people who shop in Rock Island County are not from Rock Island County, so the estimate that has been given as an example is 30% of revenue sales tax wise comes from outside Rock Island County. So that is a way to share the wealth, if you will, to allow school districts to fund capital improvements without relying on property taxes.
Now, Kevin, that's a pretty good argument. I mean, if you can have somebody from Mercer County or somebody from Henry County paying for your county schools, why not go for that?
Well, first of all, I agree with Jay in the sense that we do need improvements in our schools. If you've had any opportunity to visit any of the schools within East Moline, Rock Island, the infrastructure is crumbling. My real belief is that there's enough money already in the pot, and it's really boils down to prioritization of where we spend that money.
Well, a lot of the money that you point out is going towards teacher salaries, staff salaries, benefits, things along those lines. Is that not apples and oranges when it comes to infrastructure? Aren't those two separate budgets?
Well, that may be the case. But it really boils down to where you're placing that priority. Specifically within Rock Island, we've got roughly $33 million worth of bonded debt at the present moment. And instead of being more aggressive in how we pay that debt off, we continue to extend the term and drag that debt out for longer periods of time. And at some point in time, you have to pay off your debt. And I don't disagree, again, that the need is there, but I really think that you need to find a way to prioritize that infrastructure improvement so that the kids don't suffer.
Is it, though, somewhat more appealing to go sales tax rather than continued dependence on property taxes when it comes to funding your schools, your school systems?
It may be more appealing, but it hurts the folks that are at the bottom of the economic ladder. It should be noted that at least within Rock Island, I'm not sure the demographics within UT or Moline, but we've got close to 70% of our student population that come from homes that make less than $25,000 a year. And my primary opposition to this 1% sales tax is that it hurts the people who can least afford to be hurt.
You have seen, Jay, the sales tax increase for schools in counties surrounding Rock Island County. So I don't want to give your argument for you, but I'm sure that you look at across these county lines and see wonderful times ahead that hasn't had the dire impact that opponents believe there would be.
Absolutely. We've seen our kids in Rock Island County, their parents drive down to Galesburg, go to Geneseo, cross the river to Pleasant Valley, Davenport schools. They see fabulous facilities because of the sales tax. The Scott County schools have spent several millions of dollars over the last 10 years to upgrade their facilities. They're phenomenal facilities. And to Kevin's point, this is the beauty of the sales tax. It's a local decision as far as how the money is spent. If a school district wants to use that money to repay debt, they can do that. That's the beauty of it. So if a school district has $10 million in debt outstanding to rehab a facility, they can use that money to repay that debt to lower their property taxes.
You have been, Kevin, a big critic as far as any type of tax increases are concerned, and there is merit to that. But what about that argument that all the counties around us generally have gone this route rather successfully in some cases?
I don't know that there's a direct correlation between facilities and academic improvement. If you look, and there was just an article in the paper earlier today that Davenport has invested heavily in their infrastructure, and the paper discussed in detail about how their population is continuing to move out to Bettendorf, Pleasant Valley, LeClaire. And we in Rock Island, again, we've been the beneficiary of tens of millions of dollars of federal grant money over the last 3 years through our SIG grant program, and through the use of those dollars, there's still no improvement in academic performance. I'm a firm believer in shared sacrifice. I don't have a philosophical disagreement with the fact that we need to have improvement in facilities, but I believe that before we ask a taxpayer to give more out of their pocket, that we as an administration, we as a school district should show that we're willing to sacrifice to some degree. And over the last year and a half, 2 years that I've been on the school board, I haven't seen that. Every year, everyone gets raises, whether it's teachers, administrators, support staff, even though we're running in the red every single year. We run deficits every single year, but yet everyone gets raises, and we just continue to draw down our surplus year after year. And so again, to be fair to the taxpayers that I've been elected to represent, I just think that we need to make sure that we try to exemplify the very best behavior that we can in being fiscally responsible. And if you look at some of the initiatives that the county is involved in to reduce that cost structure, to be, to think out of the box, if you will, and reduce that cost structure, I think that we need to show our willingness to do that before we ask people for more money.
So what you're saying is that negotiate or renegotiate teacher contracts, which is the biggest chunk.
We're already in the process.
And then maybe look at something like this?
Maybe not even just teacher contracts, but there's not even been any willingness to share in the sacrifice or the burden economically on the administration side. You don't have to renegotiate any contracts with administration. You can move forward in reducing that cost structure in the way that we handle that without much effort at all.
Critics do point out, Jay, is that administrative fees in school districts are not a small measure of a school district's budget. Are there cuts, are there sacrifices that could be made before you even start looking at some kind of a tax increase such as this?
Well, I would argue that the numbers probably definitely do show, at least in Rock Island and United Township districts, and I'm guessing also Moline in the metro area on the Illinois side, is that salaries have pretty much flatlined over the last 6 years. That's more of a reason because of the state funding. So if you look at the overall salaries, you take your aggregate salaries that school districts paid in 2010 versus what they paid in 2016, by and large, there's not a great deal of change. There's a small upward trend, but I would argue that's any industry as far as your overall salaries go. So school districts have made significant cuts. For example, Moline has 100 fewer teachers now than they have 5 years ago, So the districts have made significant cuts as far as their staffing for their teachers, and in the long run, the kids hurt.
Well, let's talk about where this money would go if it passes on November 8th. How does UT plan to spend whatever extra money it gets?
Well, we're fortunate enough to have Henry County money. About 150 of our kids reside in Henry County, so we get about $50,000 a year from that. And we just remodeled a chemistry lab with that. That'll be on our website here by the end of the day today. And the beauty of that is we didn't pay anything with property taxes, or didn't receive any property tax money to rehab that classroom. It was a 55-year-old classroom that needed drastic redone. So we were able to do that. We anticipate using the money to rehab classrooms as well as improve safety and security.
Kevin's pointing out that facility improvements don't necessarily mean improvements as far as scores on tests or even success of students. And that's a very good argument as well.
Absolutely, but it's part of the larger picture of things. we want to offer our kids the best facilities as possible, but also we want to attract people to Rock Island County. We want people moving into this area, whether they're with Deer, Alcoa, when they take an initial drive by our schools, we lack the curb appeal that happens in the Iowa Quad Cities. And we need that if we're going to attract and maintain quality families in the Illinois Quad Cities.
Kevin, you got to admit that the way the school systems are being run in Illinois, it just isn't as attractive perhaps. And then you got Springfield that has a lot to do with that. Is this the road that we can continue on?
Well, I think that the overall business climate in the state of Illinois is disadvantageous. I think there's a really good opportunity for us to be more collaborative with the county, with the cities. I think that there is an opportunity to engage in more of a shared services concept. I'm not entirely 100% certain that it makes sense to continue to have 5, 6, 7 school districts in our small metropolitan area. There are other larger communities that have looked to consolidate and really get aggregate.
That's gone to the ballot too, though. And you know, it's really unpopular.
I understand that, but I think it's a matter of voter education. Mm-hmm. People need to understand that, again, with all due respect to Jay, you've got 6 different superintendents that are all making, significant amounts of money. They've got support staffs that go into that, and with the right leadership, the right goals, strategies, tactics, the right strategic plan for our community, for our region, I think that we should be able to find some benefit. And I just want to make sure that we can, as elected officials and as administrators, that we can fully demonstrate that we've done everything that we can to really pinch every penny before we ask people for more money.
And Jay, you're arguing that for the most part, that's exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely. We certainly have looked at consolidation, especially at United Township and our partner districts. We've talked about that a great deal. But end of the day, it doesn't move the needle as far as saving a great deal of money. You're still going to have the central office staff to have to support your larger operations. So if we were all to consolidate in the metro side of the Quad Cities, you may get rid of 2 or 3 superintendents, but you're going to have a larger central office staff to support your larger operations. So your savings are in reality minimal. That's what we found.
Dr. J. Morrow, Superintendent, United Township High School. Kevin Nolan, a member of the Rock Island Milan School Board. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
We want to remind you that early voting is underway right now throughout Iowa and Illinois. You can vote early at your Illinois County Clerk's office or your Iowa County Auditor's office Monday through Friday during business hours. You can also ask for an absentee ballot. Election officials say if you do that, do it real soon. Get those ballots, because then you'll have time to fill them out and send them to your county clerk or your county auditor's office. Rock Island and Scott counties also have opened additional polling stations as we get closer to Election Day. You may find that more convenient to your schedule. You can get more information on that by going to Google, your best friend, typing your county clerk's office in Illinois or your county auditor's office in Iowa, and that's where you'll get the information. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.